Hi, I'm Alex, host of Maybe Actually Museums Are For Me, and I am so excited to introduce this episode to our audience this week. For the first time, I think, so far in the history of this show, this episode is going to be a second interview with a community partner and friend of both the museum and show, Liz Samuel. I guess the housekeeping side of things. Liz Samuel is going to be hosting a 4-week personal storytelling class at the Montclair Art Museum. And, you know, if you're not familiar or maybe not listened to the previous episode with Liz, you should know that Liz is the founder, host, creator, showrunner, whatever you want to call her, of Montclair Story Salon, which is this incredibly intimate storytelling experience, which has just remarkable benefits on the community. Every show that she does is in support of a nonprofit or local organization that just needs some fundraising help and support and visibility in the community. So I was so excited to talk to Liz again, because that was probably, candidly, no offense to all my other guests, but one of my favorite conversations, because I think we were both two kindred spirits when it came to the art of storytelling and all that kind of goes with it. And I think storytellers have this kind of intrinsic connection where you can kind of just bounce off of each other. And I feel that when I talk to Liz, and I hope that comes through in the episodes. But Liz is going to be hosting a masterclass here at the Montclair Art Museum. It's a personal storytelling class, like I said, and it's through the lens of art and the perception of art and relating that to the stories that you're telling. It is a class designed and meant for adult storytellers, and it runs from May 16th to June 6th. Everyone has a story to tell, and I think that's the most important thing, and that's what we talk about in this episode. The course is ultimately, at the end, going to provide you with the ability to give a mini story salon, this live storytelling experience where you'll share your work with your peers. And it's great, whether you're a writer, an actor, a filmmaker, or just like somebody who has a deep personal experience that you're looking for an outlet to express and share. I think this is a great opportunity, and we dive into all of that and so much more in this episode of Maybe Actually Museums Are For Me. And so without further ado, I want to continue the question, is art storytelling? I know that it is, but I hope that this conversation helps solidify that. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Alex. It's so nice to see you again.
Likewise. Welcome back to the pod. I think you're our first community partner that's done double duty.
Ooh.
So this is exciting.
Ooh, that is exciting.
This is fun.
I'm honored.
Yeah.
It's really good to be here.
If for the audience, if you have not listened to Liz and I's former episode, what are you doing? It's I think at this point in time, our most listened to episode.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really well received.
Wow.
People really loved it, and you're back, which is exciting.
Yay, I'm happy to be back.
We're still talking storytelling. It's a little bit different because last time we were promoting your story salon here at MAM, which was a roaring success.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. And now we're promoting a workshop for you that you're doing. And, I'm not going to necessarily say that this is supposed to be entirely a plug. I mean, it is a plug, but I want to talk way more than just plugging your
Yes,
your,
we want people to
workshop.
sign up for the workshop, which we can talk about, but definitely would love to
do
a little wrap up of the story salon and talk about that, because I am still, even though I've had a salon since then, I'm still on a high from the story salon here. It was so much fun and a really different experience for so many reasons. It was super successful on so many different levels. Mm-hmm. It felt so elevated because of the experience of working and collaborating with you guys. Like, your team here was just all in and really made the experience not just like, let's show up and make this happen, but they really said, what can we do to make this even more exciting? And I loved how it just came together so smoothly. Mm-hmm. And the room, that space,
Lear Hall is amazing.
It was amazing. And I knew what the space was like because I had been to events there before, but the way it was sectioned off to make it more intimate, because that was my concern. I was like, how are we going to have all these people and make it feel intimate? And I loved how it was sectioned off and then just really set up in this sort of curved seating situation. So it felt like they were towards the stage that everyone was kind of curved inwards and we were in this together and not like lined up in these rows.
Absolutely.
It was great.
You pushed us in a very, like, I would say, insightful and imaginative way to really expand the space and do new things. You had the podium in the middle where all of the performers got to tell their stories. You had obviously which I know is a fixture of the Story Salon events, but the live painting kind of happening.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, you kind of drove us to try something really new and interesting and getting the paintings live streamed.
Yeah. So, that was wild getting that going. And I can't say that I can figure out tech by any means. And that's why it was so good that you guys had someone to figure that out for you. But I knew what we needed to do, but I just can't technically make it happen. And it really worked out great that everyone could watch the paintings happen. It was great. The stories were really good.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
They were so great.
So great. Norm Magnuson,
how do I get him on the podcast?
He would love to do this.
I would love to have
he would
him.
love to do this. He's fantastic.
We're going to put a pin in that for later.
Yes.
But yeah,
we'll talk about that.
It was so gut-wrenching, but hilarious and insightful and brilliant.
Teeny Tiny Tammy was the story. It was so good. Loved that. And he's a visual artist. He has some really interesting pieces. And
he's an artist that his work's at MoMA, I believe, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. And then, Kyra Peralty told a story involving her sister and the traveling diary tour that she does. And then, the music was interesting and she was kind of herself. The singer, Renee LeBeau, was her own work of art by standing up there and the way she performs.
Certainly.
And I loved, oh my gosh, Crystal Lee Ensley and her spoken word poetry. She is she was on fire. I love her. She's fantastic. And of course, Dagmara Dominichik. She's
so special.
So incredible. So it was a really great night. It was a really special night. And I never thought we should go beyond 100 people. And when they kept the ticket link open, I was a little panicky at first. And you guys knew it was going to be great. And there was it's like 162
Something
people.
I think we could have kept going probably.
Yeah, and
we could have opened it up pretty big.
And it still felt intimate.
It totally did. And I think that is a product of the environment that you have fostered and the community that you've built with this, because you do have a built-in audience that does habitually come to these, but in a way, being able to expand that, but have the presence and I think and it kind of comes down to something that this podcast battles a little bit is, how do you enter a new space? That's what the impetus of this entire show is how do you experience a museum if it's never been something you've been exposed to?
Yeah.
And I think for a large sum of that audience out of, if there's 120 people out of the 160 that have never experienced this before, they're learning on the fly and having it feels weird to say maturity level, but I don't mean maturity. I mean the seniority of having been to these and knowing the routine and understanding the cadence of how you interact as an audience was really special. And I think it was kind of became this homogenous sort of experience, a viewing
experience. We're in it together.
Yeah, totally.
And I really felt that here. And
I think Norm set the tone really, really well.
Oh yeah. No, so good. And for me, just always loving the museum and sometimes from afar and really feeling like this is a special place, standing up there and doing what I love in a place that I am in awe of. Yeah. It was just the whole night felt like magic.
Absolutely.
So it was great. It was wonderful. And I hope that we get to do it again next year. Hopefully.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
It was so fun.
Yeah.
Speaking of getting to tell your stories in this place, you're getting to do it in another way with this workshop that's coming up. And I really wanted to kind of pick your brain. This is honestly, this conversation was more for me than promotion for your workshop. I've only ever, because as we talked about last time, I'm a writer. I do filmmaking and documentary work for my job and for freelance work. Obviously, to me, this is my livelihood. And I love that I get to tell stories through video.
Yeah.
But to me, it is nice being able to put that down. I don't find myself, I was talking to one of my best friends from college about this weekend. We went to the city and we're just catching up. And he had asked me, he was like, do you ever think about doing any documentary work like outside of the museum. And I was like, honestly, I am so fulfilled with the stories that I get to tell here. And then on top of it, what I'm doing in my freelance work, that like, no, I'm good just doing it professionally. Like, I don't feel it's combining
the things you love and your hobby with work, which is so rare for people.
It's really rare. And I don't want to lose, like, I love it.
No,
and I don't want to get burned out, I think. And so to me, like, I'm sure if there's a story that needs to be told through a visual medium, that's one thing. And, you know, you tackle that when you can. But to me, like, it really does allow me to explore the written word in a bigger and more investing way.
Yeah.
And that's been really great, getting to explore, you know, writing, which I view as my main modality of storytelling. And that kind of raises the question for me. I have taken creative writing classes in college. I've been writing since I was in middle school, seriously. I've been a part of writing workshops. The unique thing about what you're doing here at MAM is that it's a storytelling workshop.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? Like, what is that?
It means it doesn't stay on the page. Alex, we get it off that page. We use, art as inspiration, art as the jumping off point, but you are getting those thoughts out, getting the feelings out, almost like therapy, although I'm not a therapist, but you get all the stuff out and all the feelings out and the inspiration from the artwork. And then we get it on the page and then we get it off the page, put the page away. I mean, yes, you can read from the page, but it's about telling it and what comes up for you and those feelings and bringing people along on a journey.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference from, you know, yes, writing a piece that stays on the page. Everyone has their own experience with it. But when you are the storyteller, you are performing your story. You're using art as a mirror, and then you're putting that on the page, but then you're taking it off the page and that presentation. If you haven't told, I don't know, I mean, you are kind of doing this with podcasting, but instead of interviewing people, it really is allowing you to take 5 to 8 minutes to really tell us, you know, walk us through a journey.
Yeah.
And something that you've seen, you know, in the museum. And what I'm excited about is to bring people through and let the work like wash over them. Let people write down, I'm going to have a questionnaire.
Yeah.
Let them take whatever pops for them at first, what things stand out to them, and it doesn't have to be like, oh, because it's pretty. No, like, is something dark in that piece that is like really speaking to you of a moment in your life that you have not been able to figure out how to express yet?
Yeah.
Let's dig into that and like tell us that story. Tell yourself that story.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity, not just with there's photography here too. So it's not just paintings and sculpture, but photography can bring out, even if the photographer has something, even if the photo is clearly of something, it might remind you of something in your life. Yeah. So I'm excited to work with adults on this. And I don't, normally teach adults. So this will be a very different experience for me.
Yeah. In the way that you're describing it, it sounds almost like, because each story salon has a theme.
Yes.
And so, in this case, obviously it's playing into the art theme again.
Yeah.
But in a way, it feels like you're doing almost like a story salon boot camp of like gearing people up to be like, this is how you tell a story prepped and ready for the story salon. We're going to dive into this thematic topic and go forward.
Oh, and don't think I won't like be picking and choosing some people from this. If we get people who have created like an amazing story that they're presenting really well, I might want to.
You might get recruited.
You might get recruited. Yes. I might be the casting director as well. And cast you for an upcoming storytelling event. We have I have a lot coming up next, next fall and winter. So and this is not why I'm doing this.
No,
so I don't
absolutely.
But I do think that I know that everyone has a story.
Yeah.
And if this is how you can bring that out, I'm excited to help people bring those stories out. I also just want people to realize that everything around them is fodder for storytelling. You could be driving down the street and the tree is blooming and it reminds you of something that happened one specific day in your childhood when you were playing under this tree and you tripped and fell, and like tell me that story, or anything. So I'm excited to use art for storytelling. And with 4 weeks, I feel like we'll get to know each other and we'll get to know the pieces here. And by the 4th class, I think I'm hoping that everyone will feel comfortable sharing. And not everyone has to, you can, if you want to write your story and you feel like it's just for you, that's great.
Yeah.
But it's really, I want people to feel like they can take the page and present it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I think one of the aspects of this that was obviously I think, catalyst for our original conversation is kind of the continuation with this conversation, but it's diving into the intersection of art and storytelling.
Yeah.
I think, somebody might say, well, why are you teaching storytelling in an art museum? Why are you talking about, whatever the case may be?
Yeah.
And, it's like, again, the impetus of this show, it's dismantling expectations. It's, shaking up how you perceive something. And to say storytelling is not a medium of art is foolish and nearsighted. And this is just a great opportunity to provide people who, I can't paint for the life of me.
No, me neither.
I can't do it.
No.
I can maybe throw some paint on a canvas and say it's abstract, but we all know that there's no meaning behind it and I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But, I can write, or I can get up and talk on a stage and project a story, or I can edit a video. And for somebody who, maybe painting's not for them, maybe sculpting's not for them, maybe clay isn't for them. Well, why isn't storytelling for you? You do it every day.
Yeah.
You have to talk to your peers. You have to talk to your family. You have to work with your coworkers. Every aspect of my life is storytelling.
Exactly.
Everything I do is in the service of story, whether I'm trying to or not.
Same.
And that's the case for everybody.
Yeah. And people don't always realize that. It's actually good for any kind of work that you're in to know what the story is of what you're working on. Or, my husband's in sales, and, when he's selling what he has to sell, by telling stories and by knowing who your audience is, that's how the sale gets made. Like that's how it happens.
Yeah.
My daughter wants to be a nurse. She's studying nursing, and, every single patient that she will have their own stories. And I think that if people really knew that if they could just share the things that they think might be too personal, it's really human to share stories.
Yeah.
And it's really artful and really, I think like we're going to heal the world if we can just be honest and tell our stories and tell the deepest part of ourselves too. I think that that's how we're going to connect with the community. That's how we're going to connect with the world. And it also helps us make sense of life.
Yeah.
And it also helps us see that not everything is so serious. Like, I think I may have said this last time, like, tragedy plus time equals comedy. There are a lot of times at these story salons, the most tragic stories end up being the funniest because the person has seen that through time, there are some really funny moments that we can all relate to.
Yeah.
And, maybe not the subject at large is funny, but the moments in between.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's fun to share these experiences through storytelling and art. Yeah, as you said, like, me too. I'm terrible at art, but I love art.
Yeah.
And I love, I'll look at something, and before I read the description, I will think, what is this?
Yeah.
What do I think is happening here? And then I'll read what the artist meant to,
Yeah.
And sometimes it correlates and sometimes it's totally incongruous and it doesn't, but it's interesting to look like, why did I think that by seeing that?
Yeah.
Also, like, we're going to look at portraits of people, and I want people to also like create characters, so that can be fictional or non-fictional, but I want people to tell a story through the faces that we're going to see.
Got it.
And then we're also going to look at landscapes and how does light in those landscapes remind you of something in your life? Like, what does it mean to see that? And how does it feel to be in that space? So the George Inness, I want to say wing. No, not wing.
Hallway.
Hallway.
It's actually so funny because I had just literally an hour ago, because I'm doing a few of these this week, and I just interviewed Gail Stavitsky, our chief curator, it was all about George Inness's 200th birthday. And so we were talking very in depth about, his work and what's on view and the rotation that's coming. So,
yes.
Yeah,
that's good. So you really, you could walk me through here and teach me some things. Cause
maybe we'll see. I don't know.
Well, I will be, I've talked to Celine who runs and she's going to send me some, I need to connect with a curator or docent just to get some more insight, into some of the pieces. But yeah, in George Inness, in his landscapes, there are a lot of common feelings in some of the paintings.
Certainly, yeah.
And I just wonder how we can tell our own stories through his work, and where do you think he's standing, and like how would that make you feel? And so we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna also really gonna get into. Let me hear a short story, an anecdote, and how do you present that?
Yeah.
Before getting into like the deep, long stories that you might write, how are you presenting, a minute-long story?
Yeah.
And this is actually how sometimes I audition people. I don't hold auditions for Story Salon. But if I'm unsure about someone's been recommended and I'm not sure, I will say, send me a 1-minute video about the time you went on a trip and something that happened, just really quick. And that would be just a little anecdote. And the way someone tells that, you can tell if they're going to be a good storyteller or not.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I want people to be able to like understand like what sounds good? What's interesting to hear? Where do you hold the audience? Where's the conflict? Where's the thing that happened? What are we waiting for?
Yeah.
And the tone, your tone, So yeah, I'm excited to just.
What is one of the, speaking of your audition process, which is kind of fun. What is like, I don't know, is there like not that obviously this isn't like improv or anything like, I guess kind of in a way it is, but I think back to like the little bit of like sketch comedy writing I did in college and like the bit of improv work that I've loosely been a part of.
You've done a lot in your young years. You have done so much.
I never said I was good at improv, but I was a part of, our Montclair
really
State's like fake SNL.
It's fantastic you did that.
But like, in that, like there was obviously a lot of bits that you would do and go through, but like, are there any, I'm trying to think of what the right wording is, I guess.
Like prompts?
Prompts. Yeah. Prompts. So what are your routines? Like what could somebody expect to, like, what's something that somebody could expect to do in the workshop?
Well, so if we are walking through and we're seeing, some pieces and I say like, what pops for you? What are some of those feelings? Right. I will ask someone, okay, so you saw this piece. All right. There's just off the top of my head, there's a photograph of a little house and there's a kiddie pool in front, right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm forgetting the name of the artist. But what does that evoke for you? And if someone says like, oh gosh, summertime, as my parents said, go outside and play and don't come home until dinner. And I will say, well, did anything ever happen on one of those summer nights that you didn't come home like in time, or did you go exploring? Like, cause that was a time maybe where no cell phones and you could just go out and be a kid and, can you tell us a story about one day? What was the temperature like outside? Like what happened? Who are you with? What feelings did you have? What did it sound like? What did it smell like? I just want to get all these feelings. That would be like something we can, summer nights. And that might end up being that theme. Maybe if everyone that day is like, wait, I have a story about a summer night. I'm like, great. I would say, let's all go with that. It might end up being a little bit of, what does the group want? But for my story salons, that's what helps, is always having a prompt. So, when I do choose my storytellers and I'll say, the theme is this, think about, like my next one coming up in May, the theme is lift off. And what does that mean to you? Lift, lifted, a lift, a ride.
Yeah.
Lifted, boosted. Like, is there anything in your life that happened where suddenly you were able to take off? And so what does that mean? And so it always helps to have a prompt. And it's fun to have a prompt.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just sort of swimming in this vast pool of like, I don't know where to
blank
begin.
Canvas.
Blank canvas. Like it's too empty, right? It's too, I love a good prompt. I work with kids a lot, and I have this little class at Luna Stage on Saturday mornings. And I always like to, before we dive into writing, our play, I give them a little prompt to tell a story. I want them to get the beginning, middle, and end. And that's a really part of the storytelling that I try to teach is like, you've got to know your beginning, middle, and end. And so I say to the kids, like a prompt would be something like, the first time I ever
blank.
Right. And so like, I had a crazy story that I once told the first time I ever went snowmobiling. Mm-hmm. It's a crazy story, and I'm not going to tell the whole story here. But, what is something that happened to you, I say to the kids, and they usually get it immediately. Kids, they're not judging each other at this age. They're like 9, 10, 11 years old, and they don't care, right? They're just like, oh yeah, the first time, whatever. And then I have older kids. I teach kids how to write monologues.
Okay.
I've had some teens come to me to write their monologues for auditions, and writing a monologue is a little different than writing a story. First of all, the monologue can only be about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's a different type of journey. But either way, you're thinking of a moment that happened that you want to bring the audience in. Bring them into this moment and describe things so well that you really put us there. I always say to storytellers when they send me I always have storytellers send me their work in advance of the event, like at least a week, so I can just check it. I don't like edit, I don't edit the whole story.
But you do this enough where you can refine moments or be like, you should hold this until a little bit later, draw their attention, and then hit them with the hammer.
Yes. Or like you've repeated this a few times. You don't need to say that again. Like we totally got it. Mm-hmm. Or you haven't mentioned the theme at all. And I think you need to weave that in somehow. Or I see that you have this moment and you're not really bringing us fully into it. What are some descriptive words that you could use for that? So that kind of stuff is helpful. But I love finding the journey for people. It's so much fun. Hearing them tell the story is different than when it's on the paper, as I said,
it adds life to it. Like you said, it's like you're hearing the pauses, you're hearing the breath. Maybe you're seeing the emotion, the anguish, maybe the joy, possibly.
Sometimes people end up crying at parts that they didn't expect to cry at, like little things, I have to catch myself sometimes because, if I share anything about my mother, my late mother, even if it's not the part that's like sad, it's just the part like, oh, she made me Halloween costumes that were horrible. And then like, that might make me cry, not because I feel bad about saying that, but because suddenly I'm like, they were so bad, they were so good. Like they were so bad that they were good. Yeah. And it brings tears, So it's we just try to get people to open up through storytelling. Yeah. Yeah, and connect.
It's almost like each person, it's like they're going through their own hero's journey while doing it in a weird way.
Yeah, for sure.
Not that there's necessarily like assignments or anything with these workshops, but like, is there anything that I guess we kind of said it before, like prompts and whatnot, but is there any, I guess, anything that they can expect or like?
Yeah. So, I did write this out. I have some notes.
I didn't even know that. Hell, yeah. That's awesome.
But because I wanted to make sure that like I was hit. So yes. So like week 1, we are going to walk through the galleries. We're going to go through the feelings that the art evokes, and I'll have first impressions. What pops? What are your first impressions? And then I want you to choose a piece. Just choose one and just write a few sentences on how it feels.
Yeah.
Okay. you can go home and have an assignment. If you want homework, I can send people home with, yes, I want you to come back and expand upon those 2 sentences. Bring it back. Let's see if any of it really, grew.
Yeah.
Maybe you went home and stewed over it and then something came from that. And then the second time I want people to come back and work on faces and characters. And so we're going to go through the gallery and find faces, portraits. And what does that evoke for you? Does it remind you of somebody in your life? Or does it, or do you want to write something new about, because sometimes storytelling, yes, I keep saying these are true stories. I enjoy that the most. Like I really like real honest stories about something that's happened in your life. But if you're somebody who wants to write fiction, I'm not going to stop you. Come in and use this workshop to start writing a piece of fiction.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the jumping off point for your novel.
Well, I think there's some I always say, because I predominantly write fiction, and I sometimes, the way I view it is like, this character I'm writing, it's not me. It really isn't. Like, but there's obviously kernels of you in it. You have, there's elements of your life or your experience or your motivations or your ethics or morals or whatever. Yeah. And even if you're writing a character that is vile,
right?
There's still pieces because that's all you know. And
that's all you know.
You could be the greatest anthropologist in the world, and you can study humans and study, human nature and whatever, and you could. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
You're always going to put your experience.
You're always going to inject an element of yourself into the character.
100%.
And so there's truth in everything to some degree. Obviously, like, to say every work of fiction is an exact representation of the author that's writing it, I think is like I said before, narrow or short-sighted. Yeah. But it's not to say that obviously it came from that writer's mind, and there's something.
Alex, if you are somebody if you really enjoy writing fiction, which is interesting because you like documentary, which is not fiction. So like you really do both.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that you'd find so much you already know a lot of the pieces in the galleries, right? But if then you stood there and you wrote down like moments of like, this is what happens first with this, something that sparks your imagination from the painting or the sculpture, right? And you just keep going based on that painting, and everything should come from that piece. Maybe like that would be a fun assignment for you.
Yeah.
And I think like I always say, do things bite-sized, right? Don't say like, oh my gosh, I'm going to write a novel from this. Like, no, I'm going to have a sentence from this. I might have a paragraph from this. I might have a 2 to 3 minute story from this.
Yeah.
Wait a second. I have a chapter.
Yes.
Like, just bite size.
It's so true.
Yep.
That's how, everything that I write tends to start off almost as not a poem, but maybe the start of a poem.
Yeah.
Not that I write poetry or anything, but it's like
because you love words, right?
Yeah, it's fun to wordsmith a little bit.
Yeah.
And craft sentences.
I can hear that in all of your podcasts that I've listened to. Like you're really great with words.
Thank you.
You pull really interesting choices. Yeah. So that's
sometimes I feel like my vocabulary is very limited too, which is strange.
What?
Yeah.
No.
I don't know. I feel like I'm always picking the same words, but that's neither here nor there.
I do not agree with that. I have heard many different words from you, and I always think to myself, good choice.
Yeah, thank you.
Good choice.
But yeah, it's like, not that it's poetry, but a sentence will like ring really well. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, that's something. That's the start of something. Like most recently, not to like out something that I'm probably going to end up using, but I'll do it. I really liked the name. Sometimes on TikTok, I have a lot of like, it's very niche to me. I get a lot of like, I'm writing a Western right now, so it's very like Western coded. And there's a lot of like cowboy illustrations and stuff. And sometimes, which I think is also just the writing side of it that I kind of get sometimes in the book talk side of things.
Isn't that funny?
It's funny that
everyone gets such different things.
Yeah. But anyway, in it, there's sometimes some writing prompts or things like that. And occasionally I'll come across, because I struggle with names. I struggle with character names, fictional names. For some reason, I really struggle with them. And I found a page that is dedicated to like, it's like, mid-century to like 1910s, 1920s, through like the 50s of like forgotten baby names.
Oh, fun.
And
I love
one of the ones that I saw in there, and one of the prompts was, what are some common names with uncommon nicknames, which was a really unique thing. And the one that I found was Christopher, and the nickname was Kit.
Kit.
K-I-T.
Oh, interesting.
And I loved that.
That's so cool.
And I thought an interesting first sentence in whatever it would be. Maybe it's a short story. Maybe it's a novel. Maybe it's a novella. Maybe it's whatever. Would be something along the lines of, their name was Christopher, but his mother always called him Kit.
Yeah.
And it's like, why? Why Kit?
Why Kit?
Why Kit?
Do you know what? So there's so many like that. Names like that, like Suki is, I think, from Susan. Like, why?
Yeah.
And that's an old nickname. Like, so interesting how, I mean, my name, everyone knows me as Liz, but my name is Elizabeth. But way back, so like 100 years ago, no one would have said Liz from Elizabeth. They would have said Betty or Betsy or Bitsy.
I have a friend. Her name is Elizabeth. She goes by Grace.
No, well, that's probably her middle name.
Maybe. I don't know, but it's still fun.
But there's all these like weird, like early 20th century, early 19th century versions of Elizabeth. Yeah, they're strange. And probably Christopher and Alexander. There's probably a whole bunch.
My name's only Alex, actually.
No, you're not an Alexander?
I'm not an Alexander, no.
There's a story behind that.
There is a story behind that. If you really want to, if we really want to get into it, there is a story behind it.
I mean, and a lot of Alexanders or Alexes are actually named Sasha.
Yes, yeah.
And you're only Alex. You're just
I'm only Alex. Yeah, when I was a little kid, I was knighted the name Big Al. I was Big Al because there's a lot of personality. And then when I was, there was a lot of personality. I think it was undiagnosed something, probably ADHD or OCD or something. And when I got a little bit older, when I was like middle school, not even middle school, I was in like 5th grade. I was getting in trouble in class a lot. And I was always put in like the inclusion classes because my teachers, I went to a very small school district. I was raised in a very rural community where, you know, they knew the kids very well. There was less than 110 kids in my graduating class. Small. And so, you know, the teachers looked out for me and they knew Alex, you know, he doesn't have an IEP or anything like that, but they should probably be in the inclusion class. And so I was always with the aides and, you know, it was fine, but because I had this hyperactivity that I didn't really know how to manage, you know.
As I sit in front of the calmest guy I've ever talked to in a long
time. It was just, I didn't know how to control myself. I talked out loud and I would sometimes be seen as like, not a bad kid, but a troublemaker maybe or something like that. And it wasn't because there was anything, you know, malicious about what I was doing. I was a kid. I was a hyper overactive kid. And it wasn't until I was in 5th grade. And in 5th grade, they did this interesting thing where it was probably unique to only my school, but there was one male 5th grade teacher. His name was Mr. Kabildis. Not to name drop him, but I'm going to name drop him. I loved Mr. Kabildis. He was the man. He still is. He teaches in the high school now. He's
totally going to hear this.
He probably. Anyway, it was the beginning of the school year. I was getting in a lot of trouble. And it was just because I was talking and wouldn't shut up and, you know, couldn't control myself. And I'd done something. I don't know what I did. And I had to sit on the wall at recess. It's probably like the 3rd or 4th time that week. And it was just me. And what they did with this class was they take all of the kids that they have learned had, you know, maybe some trouble. Maybe they're troublemakers. Maybe they were hyperactive like I was. Maybe they
weren't falling into line exactly like the way that the teachers wanted them to.
And so what they did was they took a class that had 1 or 2, maybe 3 really good kids.
Right.
And then the rest were just the rotten apples.
Aww.
And I fell in with the rotten apples.
No.
And Kabildis came and sat with me on the wall. And he said to me, and I remember this clear as day, he said, "You're not a bad kid, Alex. Like, you're not. You're a really good kid. You just don't know how to shut up."
Because you're already a storyteller.
Yeah. And I was like, oh. And he was like, yeah, if you can just learn to not speak up when you're not supposed, like, just like if you can just like,
they want to fit you in a box.
If you can just quiet down, you're a really good kid. And like all of this, it will go away. Like you're a good person.
You took that in, obviously, because you remember this very clearly.
And then I got way better, way more, calm, and crippling anxiety. And so what I realized now, as I went through middle school and high school with deep, debilitating anxiety, was that I boxed Big Al up. And Big Al couldn't run around.
That is not good.
And so that's when I started like getting like anxiety tics and stuff. And I never knew really what it was. And
you weren't allowed to just be you.
Yeah. And so when I got a little bit older, I used writing as an outlet. I used different things as outlets, storytelling as an outlet. And then I got to like junior, senior year of high school. And I was like, I started seeing my guidance counselor in high school, who was an absolute gem. And that unearthed like, I just killed Big Al, and I have to figure out how to dig him up.
Yes,
because
out. Yes,
and so I think Big Al's made a resurgence. And
good, welcome back, Big Al.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. So that's who you are, and you've got like it's so important to remember who we are, and our early child selves really do. If we can think back to like how we felt when we were 5 years old. Mm-hmm. There's that story prompt when I was 5.
Yeah.
It can bring up such deep emotions when I was 5. Because when we're 5, we're the most innocent. We just play like nobody's business, right? And it can make you very sad if you're not playing right now. Look, to me, it looks like you're doing a job that allows you to play and have fun.
I'm back in the sandbox.
Right, you're back in the sandbox. Yeah. And for me too, like doing the story salon, acting, I'm teaching a lot now. Like I am playing, I'm having a great time. And if someone were to ask me that prompt, like, tell us about when you were 5, now I can just say it all with joy.
Yeah.
But like, that's how I ended up like switching careers when I was working somewhere in my 20s. And if someone were to say, tell me about when you were 5, I would have lost it because I was not having fun. Yeah. It took me a little while to then realize, no, it's time to like find something that's fun. Even if somebody's stuck in like and that's why I do think, just to bring it around to to coming to the museum and coming, and taking a workshop to like bring all these stories out, like you can be an accountant, no offense to accountants, or a lawyer or somebody who's doing a job that sometimes feels mundane or just clerical work. But like, everybody has that 5-year-old self, has that Big Al inside them. And like that, like if we can just bring that out and remind ourselves of like, that we all still have child selves inside of us. And, let's find that. Let's find the playtime.
Yeah.
And I think that if you allow yourself to be loose and free with expressing, and whether that's writing a story or telling a story or painting or that's why. So my last story salon, not the one here, but right after. So just a few weeks ago, I added the element of dance, and she got everyone up off of their seats and motivated us to dance. Yeah. And it was another piece to this whole thing that I'm trying to do, is to inspire people to make their own art, whatever that is. So for you, that means just moving and dancing.
Yeah.
Then that's art in itself. And that's bring your story out through movement. But like, I want people to just, I feel like we'll all heal each other if we can just find the stories and the joy within us. So yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff to be had to happen when you can dig in and tell some stories, whether it's through art or storytelling.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Liz, I think this is a great place to kind of close this chapter, and I'm sure this will not be the last time we do this.
It's fun to chat.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming back on the pod.
Of course, anytime.
Is there anything audience should know? When's the next story salon? Where can people sign up for the workshop?
Yeah. So next story salon is Wednesday, May 21st. It's to support Montclair Helps, which is a new nonprofit organization. And they're sort of like an emergency services kind of organization to support the other nonprofits in town. But that's going to be at the Union Kong Church on Cooper. And we've already solidified our storytellers. I'm not going to give away the names right now, but if you just follow on Instagram and it'll a Montclair Story Salon, it'll be there. And then for the workshop at the museum, that starts May 16th. It's 4 sessions, and it'll be fun because you'll get to really explore all the work here and then find your own connection to the work here, which is like really exciting because then you'll have a piece for your whole life that you've written and performed in front of your peers. And hey, you may end up on the stage at a Montclair Story Salon, in the future. So, there's a lot happening, and I am so honored to be a very small piece of this amazing place. Montclair Art Museum is just really special. So, thank you.
We're honored you're a part of it.
Yay.
All right. All right. Thanks so much for sticking around to the end of this episode. Again, thank you so much, Liz. It was such a great, opportunity getting to speak with you. I always love our conversations, and I'm sure this is far from the last time I'll have you on the show. Again, like I mentioned at the top of the episode, Liz will be hosting a 4-week storytelling workshop here at the Montclair Art Museum. It is for adults 18 plus who are interested in learning how to storytell. And that's not, it's not just for writers. It's not just for actors. It's not just for filmmakers. It's for anybody. I think everyone's artistic. Everyone's creative. And to be a part of the arts doesn't have to be through a paintbrush or through pen and paper. It can be done through personal connection. And I think that's what this class does. So if you're interested, it runs May 16th through June 6th. And I think you're missing out if you're not taking part in it. So sign up today by visiting the montclairartmuseum.com. You can learn more by visiting our Learn and Create page. Again, this has been Maybe Actually Museums Are For Me. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this episode, and I will talk to you next Wednesday at 10 a.m. Bye.